fire, 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 fire.
Camera's rolling? You're rolling? Hold for speed. Tell me when you have speed. Tell us.
So we'll be just talking about something trivial, and then I'll look away from the camera and introduce you, and then we'll go back to
we
it.
can begin.
Great.
So you've been having a good time in Prague?
Yes, I've been having a wonderful time in Prague.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing place.
Yes, it's
I'm talking with Mo Maxfield, who is interested in the integration of Aboriginal medical techniques into the traditional system of Western medicine. And you're also well known as an I Ching drummer, is that right?
On a shamanic journey. We do shamanic journeys for people, for groups.
So that's the connecting point between the drumming and the traditional Aboriginal medical system.
Working with terminally ill to find their own imaging, their own healing images, and that's one of the facets of it.
Describe how this would look to the outsider. I mean, do you drum with dying people, for dying people?
There's a foundation in Argentina, and many of the people there are terminally ill. They can't go any further in the medical system there. And so it's sort of a holistic place that was developed down there. And when I go there with my drummers, I first requested to work with no more than 50 people, but 120 showed up, so 120 is what I did. And I took 6 drummers with big Indian skin drums, and they will lie down in the traditional journey posture, and they're very naive. There are no drums, and they haven't heard them, so I've got all these naive subjects. And they'll go on a journey in the morning and a journey in the afternoon. And what happens is that their brainwave patterns will change. I did my dissertation on that. And,
so you mean using the drum as a sonic driver?
Yes.
You're pushing groups of people into altered states
into an altered state of consciousness, depending upon how easily they will induct and how open they are. Of course, you can stop it, you know, you can stay in beta, you can stay here, or you can go.
So is it pretty well established by studies that these brain transitions are taking place under
My study is the only one that I know of.
Oh, you mentioned you did your thesis on this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Why does this happen? I mean, why is the brain susceptible to this kind of sonic driving?
It's acting as the brain seems to come into a resonance as the sonic goes into the body on the different brainwaves through the ear. It overrides some of even the pain input, and it comes into resonance like a tuning fork if you let go into it, into alpha, high alpha, or into theta, and that's where all the imaging occurs, of course.
Can a person do this with their voice, or is the drum?
It's the drum is one way. Psychedelics are one way. Chanting the bell is one way. The gong.
But for instance, with the drum, it isn't a matter of oxygenating the brain in the way it is with singing. It's a pure case of having it be sonically induced.
Yes.
This is interesting to me. I've spent time in South America with people who take a psychedelic called ayahuasca.
Yes.
And there are no drums to speak of in the Amazon because the humidity, no drum head would remain stretched.
Right.
They only do cutouts into logs.
Yes.
But they can see sound on ayahuasca.
Yes.
And I wonder about the neurophysiology of sound. It seems to be a relatively ignored area in Western medicine.
Yes, I agree.
Talk a little, if you can, about your notion of the potential that sound might have in some future medicine.
I think that it was probably a very integral part of all medicines, and I believe we lost it. I know little about anything but the drum. I mean, clinically or medically, and I'm not that heavy a clinician. And function only with brainwaves because my experience with just drums was so profound. I said, something's happening here. And then when I was in a study for the University of California with an alpha training where I was taught to go into alpha theta states, I noticed that I would be able to track this state through brainwaves. You've got to be able to track altered states with brainwaves. You just have to. That's the way that works. So let's prove this. And so every researcher's dream is when you find a hole in the literature, and there it was.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. And I need my studies validated. I need other studies to do it. But what I envision for this is you can take people who normally would be much too fragile or frightened or traditional to use another doorway, whatever that doorway may be, and with normal-looking people playing some exquisite drums that have good tones, and say this is an ancient technique for, finding your own psychomythology. It's safe, will keep you in 15 to 20 minutes, and you have to do that research. My research proved that too. I've got graphs. That when you do that, and then you come back, and then you're back and it's safe, and you can tell somebody you're not, and you don't have to be frightened.
Why do you, or how do you connect it to the I Ching? What about it is I Ching related? Well,
as I was walking around one day between classes with Angelus, and we were working with the I Ching very deeply, a voice said, I wonder if one would be able to drum the I Ching. And I went, whoa, where did that come from? So I talked to Angie, and we immediately started working on it. And if you drum, you can cast them, and you can drum them, and it turns out it's a focus meditation.
So, for instance, you have 64 hexagrams in the King Wen sequence.
Yes.
And here we have a drum.
Yes.
Now, what do I do?
All right, let's start. If I were going to teach you to drum, I'd start you with a trigram. Let's take fire.
Okay.
We'll start from the bottom, the way it's cast. And it's so simple because it would be fire, fire.
So the long beat is the solid line.
Is the single line, and the double is the two half lines, and you drum all the way up.
I see. So you view the line length as indicative of an interval.
Sure.
Interesting. And then how do you set other values like key and tone? Well, of course, with a drum, this is not an issue. I see.
Someone took it and did it with an ocarina. It was just great. I don't know, other musicians will do this.
So can you sit down and play the King Wen sequence in 384 beats, one beat for each line?
Yes, I have music, yes. See, and also, like, if I take every position of fire that can be, fire above the mountain, fire below the mountain, fire above, then there's a sheet of music for fire.
So it's like almost like Bach's method of composition, theme and variation, recursion, inversion, mirror image, all this stuff.
And there's a wonderful thing that we journey people with. That's all of the yin trigrams put together 4 times for the fourfold way. Against all the yang, they're exactly opposite, so it's called the polarity duet. So you'll have, 3 drums playing one, 3 drums playing another. You can't go as far on it. Keeps you in the channel, and all kinds of relationship issues come up on your journey.
And is it actually musical, or is it just quirky and peculiar?
It's fabulously musical.
Is it?
And you will be able to hear the different resonances of the different patterns. They're very, very different. If I play all the yang, it's very different from the receptive and the yin. It's very different. You can feel it.
It seems that this, this is probably sacrilege from your point of view, but it seems like this set of ideas would lend themselves very naturally to computer composition of music.
Absolutely. Oh, I see nothing sacrilegious. It's, well, look, what I'm doing is sacrilegious. An I Ching scholar would probably have a stroke.
Possibly, although they might surprise you. You've
Yeah.
got to pick them carefully.
Yes.
Well, that's very exciting. Where do you see it leading, or what would you like to do with that?
We're working with people and groups of people. One thing that happened is that everybody wants to play a musical instrument, and most people have a secret desire to drum. It's been jerked from our culture through the Christian church. They said it's licentious and you can't do that anymore. So people are finding they can drum. They get hands-on. It's a kinesthetic entry into one of the oldest books on the planet, into an ancient, it's a blending of East and West. And you cannot do the drumming if you're not grounded in your body. You cannot do it. And it takes practice, because as you begin to drum the sequence, you stay here and you also go out. And you can feel yourself starting to leave, and yet if you blink, since it's a random pattern, because you're drumming hexagrams, you lose it, you lose your place. So you have to train to stay present and to go, which is exactly what the shamanic practice is all about.
Is this method a mnemonic device as well? In other words, can you tell me then how to construct hexagram 54? Because you just think...
Yes, probably.
So it isn't, you have internalized the structure of all 64 hexagrams.
I haven't yet, but I'm sure that I will.
But this will come as you develop it.
I'm sure. Because the languages that they used to speak, the drum languages in Africa, they had to learn much more than this. But we're just, I'm not accustomed to that yet, so it's pretty new. I've been
Well,
doing
then
about
there
4
are
or
so
5 years.
many ways that these hexagrams could be arranged.
Yes.
Ones that derive from mathematical forms of order,
Yes.
random throws,
Yes.
the King Wen sequence.
You can sit down and drum. I'm writing music for each individual hexagram that rolls through the nuclear trigram, so that you honor each energy that's in there, and you drum it over and over and over again if you can hold it. But you space out and you lose it, and that's how you know how well you're training as a drummer, is how long you can hold one of these patterns without leaving your body.
So have you discussed any of this with Mickey Hart?
He had my dissertation, but I didn't get the research out quick enough for his book. So I don't know whether it finally got to him or not. I have
It
no
probably
idea.
did. He has a lot on his plate,
Yes,
but
he does have a
cares
lot.
more for drumming than
Yes.
anything else on earth.
Yeah, and I'm close to that.
Yeah, he lives up near me.
Yeah, oh well.
Well, this is very interesting. How do you see it working back into the whole larger theme of this conference and the global crisis? It sounds like, as I was talking to Angie, we came upon this notion of the Archaic revival.
Yes.
That there are many, many impulses in society, from house music to what you're doing, to what Robert Bly's doing, to what all that are often appear at cross purposes, but resolve themselves down into impulses toward a recovery of the archaic and the Aboriginal.
Yes.
Everything from psychoanalysis to National Socialism to psychedelic drugs,
Yes.
and so forth. So this would be part of that.
Well, I can tell you a very short story. When I first started teaching, the one group that loved this drumming the most are adolescents, teenagers, and children. They're right away. A 4-year-old, I can teach a 4-year-old faster than the father of the 4-year-old, because they're so natural. And she said to me, she was having a fight with a girl across the way, but they were drumming together on the polarity duet, and she said, you know, you just can't stay mad at somebody that you're drumming with, can you? And I said, no, you can't.
What do you think of house music as a phenomenon?
Say more about house music.
It's this beyond rock and roll club music that's becoming more and more popular in England and Germany, and it's very percussive.
Yes.
And it's built around 123 beats per minute, which is becoming
fabulous.
the new canon, basically. I mean, that's what they are aiming for.
We see where that's going.
So you weren't aware of this?
In the back of my mind, yeah, I can see the rap coming out of tunes. We're coming into rhythm. We're coming into percussion. And then as the storytellers are now going back to the drum, and I'm sitting in the audience, and I say, oh, I know what you're doing. Let me just ride that beat and go on out. And then you can induct me with your deeper wisdom. That's what the drums are
Right,
for.
so it's a return to trance, to storytelling,
And to truth.
and to shamanism.
That'd be nice.
Well, thanks for stopping by and
Yes.
talking
Thank you,
about it.
Terence. I'd love to teach you to drum.
I'd love to have you teach me to drum. We live close enough together. Maybe we can get in touch sometime.
Great. I'd like that. I'll bring you my book.
Okay,
You can
well,
read
I'll
it,
see that
okay?
you get this software.
Thank you.
'Cause
I'll see that.
you may have ideas for how to make music. Nearly every time I show it to someone with any background in music, they say, you know, there's a way to turn this into sound.
Okay,
And
let's
so
collaborate. Like that.
I'll get it to you.
Okay, Terence.
Okay,
Thank you very
good luck.
much.
Enjoy Europe.
Okay. Fire. 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 Fire.
That's nice. That's right. That's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you for the opportunity.